And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business.
She speaks, she gets less likable. There's some clip of her on the internet in her Snow White outfit saying, "Every hour I am in the outfit of Snow White wearing the dress. All 18 hours, I deserve to be paid for every single one." Oh, really? Are you having trouble paying your bills, Rachel? Did Steven Spielberg not pay you for your role in West Side Story? Did Disney fail to give you a healthy paycheck for, like, cry me a river? She's just exactly everything that we can't stand.
Alex, what has been the reaction to Disney's latest expensive own goal?
Well, the reaction has been absolutely horrible. It is the worst box office from a Disney live action remake that they've ever done.
I mean, they're projected to lose between $200 and $400 million on this.
The thing that really shocks me about this story, you know, Disney and all these media companies, they invest hundreds of millions of dollars into these projects, right? Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of, like, I don't know, vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing before you go and hire some Zoom?
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it.
You can get across. Hold on. Here. Yeah, hold on.
All right. Congrats, Rachel.
Oh my God.
Nobody
Who
wants
wants
that.
a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It's the outrage.
I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess. I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
Rachel is literally the star of a Disney movie, and she acts like she's some sort of victim, and that's the sort of mentality that is just poisoning people's minds. Like, she acts like her life is so bad.
I truly do believe that. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable.
And you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's gonna lose money on this movie, and I believe it only made less than $1 million in China.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
Listen up, folks. We've got a fairy tale so twisted, so utterly upside down that even the Grimm brothers themselves would be speechless. I'm talking about Disney's brand new, woke, oh-so-controversial Snow White remake starring Rachel Zegler. A film that was supposed to sparkle like the fairest of them all, but instead crashed and burned at the box office, leaving entire rows of empty seats and one leading lady stuck in an awkward cinematic meltdown. How did a Disney juggernaut with a budget rumored to be around $250 to $270 million go so wildly off the rails? And why is Rachel Zegler's name plastered all over this fiasco? First, let's set the stage. Picture a near-empty theater on a random weeknight. The seats are ghostly, the popcorn machines practically begging someone, anyone, to walk by, and the cast on screen is desperately trying to dazzle us with updated modern flair. Enter our star, Rachel Zegler. Once hailed as the next big thing in Hollywood, she was on track to become the face of a new generation of Disney princesses. This was supposed to be her moment, everyone. She had soared to fame in West Side Story, got the lead in a new Disney classic, and all signs pointed to a major breakout. But oh, how the mighty have stumbled. The film's dismal box office says it all. Empty seats, record low ticket sales, and a big question mark about her star power going forward. Now, we're going to do a deep dive, so strap in. We'll talk about the controversies that got us here, the questionable quotes, the behind-the-scenes drama, the overshadowing political statements, and even rumored feuds with co-stars. According to multiple sources, we've got ourselves a meltdown that's about as subtle as a sledgehammer. So, are you ready to piece together this twisted puzzle with me? But soon, a major question bubbled up. Why cast an actress who, by her own admission, never cared for the original Snow White? In various interviews, Rachel described feeling spooked by the 1,937 animated film, once even admitting she only watched it once and never again. Instead of praising the historical significance of Disney's first full-length animated feature, she brushed it off as archaic. Right there, the train lurched off track. If you were hired to portray an iconic Disney princess, you might expect at least a crumb of admiration for the legacy. Instead, viewers got a mouthful of exasperation from the star, who said she was happy to toss out the outdated storyline about true love. As if that wasn't enough to ruffle feathers, Zegler took every chance to remind us that the original prince was basically a stalker. She said that out loud, folks. So much for a classic love story. Think about that for a moment. Your star performer is basically telling the world she despises the original premise. That might work if the script was an edgy reinterpretation, but for a mainstream family film under the Disney banner, suddenly, fans weren't so sure. Social media was ablaze with, "She's mocking the fundamental roots of what made Snow White endearing." But oh, that was just the beginning. During 2022's D23 Expo, a few short clips from the film surfaced, along with interviews from Rachel Zegler and her co-star, who plays the evil queen, Gal Gadot. This was supposed to be a hype-building press momenino, something to electrify audiences, reveal gorgeous footage, and promise a magical, fresh retelling. We're not just talking about cold numbers here, though those numbers do sting. The real heartbreak for Disney, and for Rachel Zegler, is the complete absence of audiences. Even social media lit up with users sharing pictures of near-vacant theaters. People posted snapshots of advanced seating charts with entire rows unsold. That image, alone, countless seats just sitting there, unoccupied, on what should have been a triumphant opening weekend, sums up the entire story. No one showed up for this. Even Discount Tuesdays couldn't salvage the situation, apparently. And that's when you know it's a flop if you can't sell tickets even at slashed prices. We have first-hand glimpses of this fiasco, courtesy of Instagram stories from a certain friend of Rachel's, named Ilda Mason or Ilda Demison, depending on the account. We've got a few different names floating around, but we're told these are ride-or-die friends who stuck by Zegler's side. The group apparently decided to watch Snow White in an empty theater. Picture it. Rachel Zegler herself huddled in a seat, with just a few loyal pals in the background, and a massive swath of empty seats all around them. Is that dedication or pure heartbreak? Possibly both. And here's the cringe factor. They were filming their own reactions, cheering ironically every time Zegler's name popped up on screen. They even tried that viral "2 tickets please" joke, only for the theater employee to look confused. For which movie? The perfect comedic burn, if you ask me. But let's not forget one detail. Rachel, apparently armed with a bouquet of flowers, was there cheering for her own performance. Why the bouquet? Sympathy from friends? A show of support? Or maybe to keep up some glitzy vibe in the midst of total gloom? We can only guess. Either way, it's not a good look. And do you know what else is not a good look? The receipts. You can sugarcoat it all you want, but a bomb is a bomb. Critics didn't hesitate to call it a royal disaster and the biggest Disney misfire in decades. That's gotta hurt. Now, you might be asking, but why blame Rachel Zegler for the entire fiasco? After all, this is a big production, and flops usually take a village. True, but oh, let me tell you, Rachel sure provided plenty of reasons for critics and audiences to raise eyebrows. Let's roll it back to an old clip that's now going viral for all the wrong reasons. But let's not forget one detail. Rachel, apparently armed with a bouquet of flowers, was there cheering for her own performance. Why the bouquet? Sympathy from friends? A show of support? Or maybe to keep up some glitzy vibe in the midst of total gloom? We can only guess. Either way, it's not a good look. And do you know what else is not a good look? Even more ironically, one user commented something along the lines of, Welcome back to reality, princess. Snow White was a complete flop. Another user posted memes basically mocking the idea that she once thought her star power alone could fill theaters. If that's not a humbling experience, I don't know what is. But let's get real. As a young star, maybe you're bound to say some things that come back to bite you. And Zegler is definitely a prime example. She's had quite a track record with questionable statements, from dissing the original Snow White as a weird story about a guy who stalks the princess, to openly complaining about certain political issues. Everyone's allowed an opinion, but in the realm of Disney, where brand management is everything, these comments have sometimes overshadowed the film itself. But if you thought that was the worst of it, buckle up. Because the behind-the-scenes drama is just as theatrical as the movie's storyline, and it goes way beyond empty theaters and cringe-worthy interviews. Now, I love a good Hollywood feud as much as the next person, and it seems we have plenty of that right here. Remember, Rachel Zegler starred alongside Gal Gadot in this remake, with Gadot cast as the evil queen. You'd think that synergy, new star meets established global icon, would be a big selling point. But oh no, rumor has it tensions were brewing. Multiple outlets, Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, People, allegedly spilled that things between these two got complicated. At first, they were all smiles, hugging each other at D23, celebrating the big reveal. But as the months wore on, the differences turned into subtle snubs and online spats, culminating in some pretty awkward red carpet interactions. Let's talk specifics. One rumor has it that Rachel posted a backhanded compliment about Gadot, calling her a professional pageant queen in an Instagram comment. That might sound harmless enough, but it reportedly rubbed some folks the wrong way, especially considering Gal's background in the Miss Israel pageant. People on social media took it as an indirect shot, like Zegler was downplaying or belittling Gadot's accomplishments. But there's more. Zegler, apparently unafraid of stirring the pot, also made certain statements supportive of Palestine. Why is that an issue? Because Gadot is Israeli, served in the Israeli army, and has faced plenty of political backlash for that background. Word on the street is that Disney had to put out fires behind the scenes, even paying for extra security for Gadot after an onslaught of threats. That's right, this feud wasn't just a petty disagreement. It potentially jeopardized people's safety. A Disney insider told sources that she didn't understand the repercussions of her actions for the film, for Gal, for anyone. That's a direct quote from an unnamed but supposedly well-connected individual. Ouch again. And it's not just about one or two posts. Apparently, Zegler had a pattern of stirring political controversies, culminating in an Instagram post that read, "May Trump supporters never know peace." Yet another group alienated. And we know Disney is a business that tries to appeal to as many people as possible, so this kind of polarizing statement is the last thing they want from the face of their new princess movie. Let's pause for a moment and reflect. If you're leading a major family-friendly film with a $250 million budget, maybe you want to keep your controversies low-key, right? Maybe you'd want to focus on the story, the production, the legacy, the fans, basically anything other than stepping into a political minefield. But that's exactly where we found ourselves. Disney execs reportedly had meltdown after meltdown, trying to rein in the star. Even Mark Platt, father of Jonah Platt, an actor and the film's producer, allegedly flew out to scold Zegler in person, not once, but twice. She apparently refused to remove the post at first, and it took a crisis-level meltdown to persuade her. By the time she did, the damage was done. The timeline alone is enough to make you wonder if the entire focus on the film was overshadowed by these controversies. You can see where I'm going with this. The film wasn't just undone by a bad script or lackluster CGI dwarfs. It was also undone by the PR nightmare swirling around it. Some fans might not care about an actor's off-screen politics, but others do. And if enough controversies pile up, sometimes folks just decide to stay home. And boy, they sure did stay home for this one. But wait, let's talk about these CGI dwarfs for a second, because that is yet another fiasco. Do you all remember the original 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? That classic is literally the foundation of Disney's entire animated empire. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. But for the 21st century, Disney tried to modernize. Fine, great. We appreciate a thoughtful update. But apparently, they weren't quite sure how to handle the dwarfs themselves, fearing the portrayal might be insensitive or outdated. Enter Peter Dinklage, the celebrated Game of Thrones actor, who called Disney out early on for patting themselves on the back for diversity by casting a Latina actress, while still running with what he considered a backward story about 7 dwarfs living in a cave. So, how did Disney respond? By shelving the classic dwarfs. Instead, they introduced new characters or used CGI stand-ins. The big reveal was less than well received. Fans took one look at the official images and quickly made their opinions known, calling them stiff, uncanny, or just plain disturbing. One social media commenter said they looked like a bizarre fever dream of the original dwarfs. Dinklage's criticism made waves. Some said, "Thank you for pointing out the hypocrisy." Others argued that he was basically robbing actors with dwarfism of a chance to appear in a major Hollywood film. Remember, representation matters, and if these roles are cut, that's a big chunk of potential jobs lost. The debate raged on and overshadowed the production, fueling the already negative press swirling around the film. This fiasco only amplified the sense that Disney wasn't sure what story it wanted to tell. Was it a progressive reimagining, or was it trying to cling to the charm of the original? Instead of pleasing everyone, it seemingly ended up pleasing no one. So, in the midst of all this, you might wonder, is the new Snow White a cautionary tale for Disney? A cautionary tale for Rachel Zegler's PR approach? Or perhaps a cautionary tale for Hollywood at large, which has started to rely heavily on reboots and remakes? Maybe it's all three. This fiasco shows that you can't just slap live-action reimagining on a beloved classic, throw in some star power, and assume audiences will show up in droves. It also shows that it's not enough to cast a rising talent who's unafraid to speak her mind without anticipating the blowback. Because let's be honest, if you're front and center on a project that's supposed to unify families, longtime Disney fans, and casual moviegoers, the last thing you want is to have your star constantly embroiled in controversy. Maybe in smaller indie films, you can get away with an edgier persona. But for a Disney princess, the brand synergy is crucial, and one misstep can overshadow the entire production. But let's keep going, because the avalanche of drama has a few more layers we need to peel back. For a studio as massive as Disney, the premiere of a new live-action remake is typically a lavish affair. Think red carpets, paparazzi, major cast appearances, Disneyland parades, and more. But apparently, for Snow White, the fanfare was suspiciously muted. Instead of a big Hollywood Boulevard extravaganza, they opted for a quiet daytime event, followed by an understated screening at the El Capitan Theater. Even the European premiere, usually a glitzy highlight to capture the hearts of fans across the pond, was minimized. Where'd they go? A castle in northern Spain. Picturesque, yes, but far away from the typical hustle and bustle of London's Leicester Square. Rumor is, Disney didn't want to draw too much negative attention, knowing the controversies that had attached themselves to the film like barnacles on a sinking ship. And guess who showed up at that hush-hush event? Pretty much the cast, a few selected press members, and that's it. No giant spectacle, no expensive after-party. Some insiders speculated it was Disney's way of signaling they weren't confident in the film's success, or at least they wanted to keep the noise to a minimum before the real box office numbers came in. Let me ask you viewers, if you were confident in a major tentpole release, wouldn't you want the biggest, splashiest premiere possible? Let the world see how proud you are of your new creation, right? So the fact that Disney went the opposite route suggests they saw the writing on the wall. Maybe test screenings didn't go well. Maybe executives felt the negative press swirling around the film was too big a hurdle. Or maybe the tepid marketing push from Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot gave them cold feet. Either way, it's telling. By this point, you're probably wondering, how could a big brand like Disney fail so spectacularly? Well, get comfortable, because the controversies keep on coming. Long before the film hit theaters, Rachel Zegler made headlines for her comments about the 1937 animated classic. She famously referred to the original storyline as weird, specifically calling out the prince for stalking Snow White. Now, I have no problem with a modern reinterpretation or critique, but can we say, yikes? In a fandom known for its intense loyalty, calling the original classic weird is basically poking the Disney hive with a very large stick. If that's not enough, Zegler doubled down in a variety of interviews, suggesting that her Snow White would be different, more empowered, less about romance, more about self-realization. Hey, that's cool. In theory. But there's a difference between wanting to innovate and coming off as if you're disrespecting a cornerstone of animation history. Social media lit up with fans incensed, accusing her of biting the hand that feeds her. "If you hate the story so much," wrote one outraged fan, "why'd you agree to star in the remake?" And so the drama grew. On the one hand, progressive fans applauded the idea of a 21st century spin on an old tale. On the other hand, longtime Disney devotees felt they were watching a beloved classic get shredded in real time by a lead actress who didn't appear to like the source material at all. It's a lose-lose scenario, especially when you're trying to unite multiple generations under the Disney brand. Let me pause again and ask, how do you modernize these classics without alienating the original fans? It's a tough line to walk, and it's one that requires a certain finesse. In theory, Disney could have found a middle ground, and maybe they tried. But a lot of the noise overshadowed the final product. By the time the film actually came out, so many controversies had already left fans exhausted. They were tired of hearing about Rachel Zegler's opinions, tired of the dwarfs fiasco, tired of the rumored feud with Gal Gadot. And so, they stayed home. It's as simple as that sometimes. Let's circle back to Zegler's social media presence, because that's one of the biggest talking points. It's no secret that Rachel is politically outspoken. From her messages about certain administrations to her pointed comments about supporters of specific politicians, she's never been shy. And that's fine. Everyone has the right to express their beliefs. But in an industry so heavily scrutinized as Disney, where the audience spans all ages, backgrounds, and political leanings, these statements can have major repercussions. For instance, her post regarding "May Trump's supporters never know peace," as reported by certain outlets, certainly rubbed a good portion of the public the wrong way. Whether you agree with that sentiment or not, it's undeniably polarizing, especially for a brand trying to appeal to families across the entire political spectrum. If you happen to be among the group Zegler criticized, you might feel unwelcome at the theater. According to insider rumors, Disney executives were tearing their hair out trying to figure out how to mitigate the backlash. Some suggested that they even told her to tone it down, but she refused or delayed. In the end, it apparently took major meltdown-level interventions by the producers to get her to remove the posts and consult with a social media advisor. The result? A star who looked less than enthusiastic when it came time to promote the movie, and an audience that might already have felt alienated. All these factors add up. We live in an era where celebrities can directly interact with fans via Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. That can be great for authenticity. But it can also be catastrophic when your brand depends on universal appeal. It's one thing to champion human rights or social justice, but it's another to push statements that might come off as hostile to large swaths of the population. Particularly if your role is that of an iconic Disney princess. Some might say, "Rachel, read the room." And for those who might be thinking, "But big stars share their opinions all the time." True, but the difference is that some do it more carefully, or with a separate personal brand that doesn't overshadow their film's promotional cycle. Zegler's statements seemed inextricably linked to the film's marketing, for better or for worse. The controversies overshadowed the craft. We're nearing the final act, folks, but there are still a few more bombshells to discuss. You might have heard the name Jonah Platt popping up in all this drama. Jonah is the son of producer Mark Platt, who had a big hand in bringing Snow White to the screen. According to a few sources, Jonah Platt didn't hold back his frustration with Rachel Zegler on social media. In a now-deleted Instagram comment, he blasted her for single-handedly hurting the movie's chances at success. He reportedly wrote that his dad had to personally hop on a plane to talk some sense into Zegler about the negativity she was bringing, particularly regarding her outspokenness on political issues during the film's promotion. "This is called adult responsibility and accountability," Jonah scolded. making it clear he felt Zegler's behavior was unprofessional and detrimental to the project. If that's not a direct call-out, I don't know what is. Even People magazine, The Hollywood Reporter, and Variety weighed in, citing anonymous insiders at Disney who confirmed there was major tension. It wasn't just a small spat. This was full-blown meltdown territory, with Mark Platt presumably pulling rank to keep the film from sinking further. Did it help? Obviously not enough, because the box office bomb still happened. Hollywood is a team sport, especially with a film as big as this. You have cast members, producers, directors, marketing teams, brand managers, and so on. One errant voice can disrupt the entire synergy. You know the old phrase, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch? Well, it might be an overstatement to call Rachel Zegler the sole reason for the fiasco, but she certainly contributed more negative headlines than this production could handle. It's also worth noting that co-star Gal Gadot has her own controversies, but they were overshadowed by Zegler's ceaseless stream of questionable takes. If you believe the rumors, Gal tried to maintain a diplomatic posture, focusing on praising the film. Meanwhile, Zegler was firing off a litany of biting comments, both about the original story and about global issues. In a family-oriented brand environment, that just doesn't fly. Still with me? Because it's time to talk about the final meltdown and the quiet release, leading us to the unstoppable train wreck of an opening weekend that we saw. In the days leading up to the film's release, Disney all but vanished from the marketing sphere. Sure, we got some standard television spots, a few late-night interviews with Rachel Zegler, but it lacked that big, unstoppable Disney push. No viral marketing stunt, no synergy across their theme parks. It's like they wanted the film to come and go without making too many waves. On social media, Zegler posted a heartfelt message about how the film was life-changing, praising the crew she worked with in London, where the bulk of the filming took place. But fans quickly noticed she gave zero mention of Gal Gadot, not a single word. Considering Gal was her co-star, that's suspicious, right? Did she just forget? Or was it another subtle snub? Then the 21st of March arrived, the day the film officially went wide in theaters. By the 22nd of March, we had those ghastly preview numbers, 3.5 million. Fast forward to Sunday, and the total had only crawled up to 43 million. In an era where even underperforming Marvel films can squeak out 60 or 70 million, 43 is an abject failure. Meanwhile, the movie's budget loomed at a rumored 270 million plus marketing. It's not rocket science to see how quickly that becomes a money-losing black hole. Critics, fans, and even casual observers looked at each other in disbelief. How did we get here? The meltdown had reached its final form. The big question is whether Disney learns anything from it. So, dear audience, what is the moral of this twisted fairy tale? Perhaps it's that reboots are a tricky business, requiring more than just a big budget and a star who's trending on social media. Perhaps it's that brand synergy matters, especially when you're dealing with Disney's legacy content. And yes, perhaps it's also that you shouldn't put your lead actress in the spotlight if she's going to use that spotlight to dunk on half the audience, slam the original story, and feud with co-stars. Rachel Zegler is a talented individual. No one denies her vocal chops or the star quality she brought to previous roles. But maybe this fiasco was the perfect storm of hubris, poor PR handling, and an ill-conceived woke approach to a beloved classic. Sometimes, the more you tinker with the magic formula, the more you break it. Now, let's wind this drama train to its final station with a little reflective wrap-up. The moment that sums it all up for me? The near-empty theater with Rachel Zegler and her friends ironically cheering for a film that no one else bothered to watch. That moment captures the heartbreak, the confusion, and the comedic tragedy all in one. Because if your star is basically hosting a private screening for themselves, flowers in hand, on opening night, that's not a good sign. That's not the image of success. It's the image of a box office catastrophe. And let's not forget the receipts. 3.5 million in previews, 43 million opening weekend, widely ridiculed on social media, overshadowed by political controversies, overshadowed by overshadowing a co-star. It's a meltdown, plain and simple. So here we are, folks, looking at what might be one of Disney's biggest missteps in years. It's not just the money, it's the reputational hit. The Snow White brand, once a cornerstone of Disney's empire, just got dragged through the mud. And at the center of it all stands Rachel Zegler, who ironically tried to position herself as a champion for a more modern Snow White, only to alienate fans left and right. Let me be clear, I'm not saying she alone sank the ship. The film's script, the awkward marketing, the CGI dwarfs, the behind-the-scenes bickering, the political soapboxing, they all contributed. But the biggest chunk of blame swirling around social media and insider chatter is directed at Zegler. Right or wrong, that's the narrative shaping up, as if she's the face of this fiasco. And that, my friends, is the moral of the story. Sometimes, no matter how noble your intentions, you can't strong-arm audiences into the theater. You can't browbeat them with politics. You can't dismiss the source material they love. And you certainly can't rely on star power alone to overshadow a half-baked product. Because audiences are quick to pick up on the drama, the controversies, and the sense that something just isn't quite right. So, what do you think, dear viewers? Did Rachel Zegler's political takes and scathing reviews of the original Snow White doom this film from the start? Was this a classic case of Disney fumbling a beloved story in an attempt to modernize? Or was it just a perfect storm of behind-the-scenes chaos, ironically orchestrated by a princess who didn't want to be a princess? Let me know in the comments below. And if you think this is the end of the saga, think again. With the film's financial disaster on display, who knows what new revelations might surface? There could be more behind-the-scenes gossip, more heated interviews, or maybe a shocking statement from Disney explaining what really went wrong. Keep your eyes peeled, folks, because I have a hunch this story is far from over. In the meantime, thank you for sticking with me through this dramatic retelling of how a fairy tale became a box office horror show. If you like this kind of deep dive commentary, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more breakdowns on all things Hollywood, and drop a comment about your favorite moment in this jaw-dropping fiasco. Because let's face it, sometimes the drama off-screen is more fascinating than what we see on-screen. Until next time, keep your popcorn warm, your seats comfy, and your eyes peeled for the next big Hollywood meltdown. Because if there's one thing we know, it's that Tinseltown never fails to serve up more drama than we can handle. And on that note, I'm signing off. See you in the next one, everyone.